Hi everyone, and welcome to season 7 of Behind Your Eyes. And in this third episode, my guest is the lovely Del. So hi Del, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes, well, excuse me, a bit croaky here. It's first thing in the morning. Hello to everybody, and thank you so much, Suzanne, for inviting me on your show. My name is Adey Jones, and I am a relationship coach, and I specialize in helping people overcome codependency and narcissistic abuse, and childhood trauma. Some of the trauma that we've experienced that have had us develop those tendencies to be codependent and attract narcissistic abuse into our lives. And so I love the work I do. It's amazing. It's amazing to witness the transformation that can happen and see people move on to have these incredible lives and wonderful relationships. So that's what I do.
Well, I always start with the same question, and that is a sincere, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's first thing in the morning for me here in California. So so the day has been wonderful so far. So I had a lovely little chat with my sister in the UK already. So we're off to a good start.
Yeah, you've mentioned you're now a coach. You help women with codependency and narcissistic abuse. And could you tell me about how your journey in that was?
Yes. And just to clarify, I also help men, because often we develop codependency as a young child if we've grown up in a traumatic environment, or we've maybe possibly had a narcissistic parent. And often as a coping mechanism, children of narcissists become codependent to adjust to living in that environment. For me, I grew up, basically I grew up without a father. My mother, I was born in Wales in the United Kingdom in 1959. And my mother was not your typical 50s housewife. She was a maverick that danced to the beat of her own drum, I like to say. And I was the product of an affair she had with my father, a married man who lived a couple of miles down the road. And they had a long-term affair. They had an affair for 8 years, but I never, ever met my father. I only saw him for the first time when I started going to the local little primary school in the village where he lived. And I was so excited to see him because he was this mystery to me. And but I would look at him and just stare at him as I would pass his little house or the garage where he worked as I was on my way to school. And I was always hoping to sort of catch his eye and have him sort of smile and acknowledge me. And he never did. He always looked away and never acknowledged me. So that left me feeling very much that if I had been prettier or cleverer or skinnier or sweeter, whatever it was, I had a litany, a laundry list of things that I thought were wrong with me, that he would never acknowledge me as his child and show me love and affection. So that really affected how I felt about myself growing up. I really felt that I was less than, and also being called the word illegitimate back in the late 50s was a stigma back then. I mean, nowadays nobody cares about it, but back then it was a stigma, especially in a little small community where, they were very church-going, chapel-going people. So I felt illegitimate, which in my little young mind meant I wasn't legitimate as other people. And I also felt, like I said, that abandonment by my father had me develop codependency as a coping mechanism. And I carried that on in life. And as I got older, I started being attracted to unavailable men that were, disrespectful to women, womanizers, cheaters, all the things that my father was. Because I say, I think that as we grow up, we want what I call a do-over, which means that we attract the same situation as we had with the parent that we had the most difficulties with, to to try and change the outcome this time. So I think in my unconscious, I was attracted to men like my father, so that this time I could actually have them fall in love with me. I wanted to change that outcome. And as we know, that was pretty futile. And I was in many narcissistically abusive relationships because of my codependency. I was attracting narcissists to me that, and I wasn't aware of what I was doing to have that happen. So once I became aware of it, thank God, I was able to change that dynamic and change the type of relationships that I drew into my life.
It's interesting that you say that you drew these men to you to try to change the outcome. Did you also try to change the men or yourself? Or?
Oh, well, as often as we do, we focus on the other person and try and change them, not ourselves. And yes, I was, and I didn't, I was not, let me put it this way, it wasn't so obvious at first, because narcissists are incredibly charming. And if you have low self-esteem, you're susceptible to charm. A narcissist doesn't come out and just say, hey, I'm a liar and a cheater and I'm abusive. They love bomb you in the beginning. They woo you in. Now, if a man, well, I'm very happily been with the same man now for the last 13 years, who's a beautiful man, certainly not a narcissist. But when I see my friends getting involved with narcissistic men, I can see the charm and I see why they're getting sucked in. But for me, I look at that and that's like a red flag. It's dangerous to me. I'm immediately like, whoa, they are love bombing you and you do not see what's going on under the surface. Now I can recognize it in people, but back then I couldn't. I was just too vulnerable to the flattery and to getting what I hadn't had as a child, attention from a man. So.
Yeah, because that was my next question. Like, what are some signs or red flags that we should pay attention to in those relationships?
Yeah, well, the first one, as I say, is the love bombing. And that is when somebody moves very, very fast to woo you, to win you, to secure you. They often, they're completely projecting. They don't even know you yet, but they're telling you that you're the one that they've looked for all their life. And they've never met a woman like you before. And they want to marry you. They want to have your baby. They want to move in together. And it's so much of that. And again, as I say, if you've been starved of affection from a man as a child, we are more susceptible to that. So that's the first sign, is people moving too fast. I'll talk about it from the female perspective, because as I say, I do work with men as well. But say from my perspective, a man that moved too fast, I would immediately, my antenna would go up now and go, whoa, why is he moving so fast? Secondly, the second stage is what I call the on the pedestal, off the pedestal. And that is they put you on the pedestal, they worship you, they think you're the best thing since sliced bread and all that stuff. And then they start to just pick at you and they pull you off the pedestal. And then criticizing you and belittling you. And then they'll put you back on the pedestal and then pull you off again. And you're less. And what that creates an actual psychological addiction, rather than if somebody was just sort of normal. It's that sort of worshiping you to degrading you creates a psychological addiction to always wanting to get back on that pedestal, waiting for them to adore you again. And it's a very, it's really damaging to your psyche. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome. I don't know if you're aware of Stockholm syndrome, but it's that sort of good cop, bad cop, and it does create a bond, a trauma bond with the person that's abusing you. And there's also a lot of chemicals, neurochemicals that are produced in that type of environment, so you actually get sort of physically addicted as well as emotionally addicted to that thing.
So they raise you up to tear you down, and then you are in that state of, but he was so sweet and so kind and so loving. I want that again. I'm sure I can change him into being like that again.
Exactly, all the time, because they will do it immediately. The second they feel that they've pushed too far, they rescue you and
Mm-hmm.
woo you back in with the love bombing. And
Yeah.
it becomes so seductive, and you tolerate the bad to just get that fix again, that fix of that high of the the adoration and the love and the apologies, and I didn't mean it, and I'm so sorry, I love you so much. And so it just becomes very an emotional roller coaster. Also beware of lack of boundaries. I mean, narcissists believe they're superior to everybody else, and the rules don't apply to them. The rules are for just the little people, the normal people. They're very grandiose, and well, it depends. There's covert narcissists and overt narcissists. The overts are the very sort of grand, and I'm important, and everybody should follow me and do what I want. And then the covert is the one that's more of the sort of victim-y, but they're still self-absorbed. It's all about me. Life has had it, treated me so hard. I need, you need to take care of me. You can't leave me. So they different approach, very sort of, and as codependents, we tend to be very nurturing and always putting other people's needs ahead of our own. So we tend to be that sort of, we get sucked in very easily to those people that present as victims, or that they've had a really hard life or hard.
That suddenly the nurturer in us comes alive, and we want to take care of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of codependents identify as empaths. They prefer that word, but it's the same thing. We feel other people's pain. We're very sensitive to our environment, often, as I said, because we grew up in a traumatic environment. You had to be on hyper alert to sense other people. So we're very sensitive to the moods of other people. And that's where we start sort of walking on eggshells and making sure that, we're not upsetting somebody else, because we have this massive fear of abandonment. We believe that we need the other person to live, to survive,
and to live a happy life.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And when you say like about the boundaries, because one thing that I've seen with others is that the man in the relationship wants to keep the friends away.
Yes, that's it depends on how, I mean, narcissism is on a spectrum. I mean, there can just be somebody with some narcissistic traits that are just sort of unpleasant. And then on the other side, there can be some really, the malignant narcissist. They are the ones that will try and separate you from your family and your friends. They want to isolate you, because it's all about power and control. They want to have control over you. So the less that you are dependent on other people in your life, and more dependent on them, the more power they have.
Yeah.
So that's also what can happen, definitely, if they start. But what they can also do, which is a really, I call it dirty fighting, is they can use your family and your friends, excuse me, we call it flying monkeys. They will say, oh, your family thinks you're crazy too, or your friend told me that, so they bring in this sort of army of flying monkeys to keep you feeling bad about yourself. And there's another dynamic that happens. We call it it's called learned helplessness. They have you believe that you cannot survive without them, and over time you start to believe them, because it's subtle. It's that gaslighting, which I'm sure you've heard about. Sort of, that it goes back to that movie with Ingrid Bergman, when the husband was turning the gas lights and they were flickering and they were going down and up, and she was saying, what's happening with the lighting? And he would say, nothing's happening, you're imagining it. And that's gaslighting, is having you question your own sanity. Have you end up believing them over your what I call our inner wisdom. I mean, everything I do comes from a spiritual perspective, and that's where we get our strength from, is when we really know who we are spiritually at our center. So everything, how I teach and work with my clients, is coming from that place of, we have our own wisdom. It's guiding us, it's telling us the truth. But we've been so brainwashed by this other person in our life, whether it was a parent or a partner or whoever it is, that has had us doubt our intuition, doubt our wisdom. And instead we start believing them.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is one of the most awful things that happens to people. I remember when I came out of my last relationship, it was, I didn't even, the worst thing was, it wasn't like I didn't trust other people anymore. I didn't trust myself.
Right.
And that's to me is such a crime, to rob somebody of their belief in themselves, the strength that they know they have within them, to take that away from somebody with this psychological abuse.
So how did you get out of that and create awareness around your situation?
Well, I'd been in therapy for many years, and I'd also been on a spiritual path for many, many years. But I found myself in a situation, it was a long-term relationship, and I went into it. I was a successful costume designer in Hollywood. I had a career. I was, doing very well in my life, considering I was codependent. I was doing very well. I came out of that 18-year relationship, and I say I was like a rag doll with all the stuffing pulled out. And I was in a meditation overlooking the Pacific Ocean here in California. And I had this voice inside me saying, I just heard it so loud and clear. And it just said, get out now before he destroys you, followed by, you need to learn to love yourself more than you love him. And it was on Valentine's Day, the day of love. And I thought, I do need to learn to love myself. I do not love myself. And I walked back to the house and I just said, okay, because there'd been some huge revelations a year before where I'd learned all about the deception and the other life and all of this stuff. And it was devastating to me. And, I had children. I wanted to sort of give my children what I didn't have as a child, which was a secure two-parent family. But at some point you realize that you can't do it all on your own. It takes two. And if the other person is not willing to be honest and to put their part into the relationship, you can't make it work. So I decided to take some time off from relationships, because prior to that, I had sort of gone from one relationship to the next pretty quick. So I took a year and a half off, and I really just got to know myself. I got to see my innate wisdom and resilience and strength, and I rebuilt. I didn't rebuild myself. I take that back. I reconnected with the truth of who I was. I reconnected with who I was that I had forgotten. And when I came out of that, the first man I met, well, I actually dated a couple of times. My therapist actually at the time said, do not just date one man. I want you to date 10 men, at least a couple of dates before you settle on one. And I did. And I met my current fiance, who, I've only just come to the place of wanting to get married. I must admit, there was a part of me that was so loving my independence, even though we've been in a committed monogamous relationship for 13 years. I was raising my children, making sure they were secure, and hadn't really thought about remarriage or anything. And then probably about last year, we were like, well, this is certainly working. Maybe it would be a good idea to get married. So really it was, I took that time to really reconnect with, as I say, the truth of who I am. And as I say, I think we're all these magnificent, beautiful spiritual beings having a human experience. And, and it was working on myself that had me change that dynamic, changed who I was, but it also changed the type of man I was attracted to and who was also attracted to me.
Right.
Because narcissists have a very keen sense if they can manipulate or overpower. They can sense it. It's almost like we're sending a signal innocently. We're not intentionally doing it, but they will choose the person, because as I said before, codependents, all they do is take care of others. What others need is theirs. Now, obviously, a narcissist. So I do this. I don't know if it's a podcast, if you can see this, but codependents have zero level of entitlement, whereas narcissists have a huge level of entitlement. So they're not going to be attracted to somebody that's not going to give them everything they need. They're going to be attracted to the person that will put their needs ahead of their own. So we have to raise our level of entitlement. We have to be strong and independent and strong boundaries. And then narcissists go, well, they're too strong for me. I want somebody down here who's going to make it all about me.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how, when
Yeah.
we get healthier, we attract a healthier partner.
Mhm. And are there certain like healing techniques or self-care techniques that you've used in your healing?
Oh, what 100%. I teach from as I said, I've been on a spiritual path since I was 21. When I first came to California, I was like, oh my God, I needed to make sense of my very dysfunctional
Mm.
childhood. And so I use different modalities, different spiritual modalities. But for me, when we sort of have this brain up here, what I call the personal mind, and it's full of chatter, and especially if we've been through trauma as a child, we tend to have that inner critic that's always
Mm.
putting us down, telling us we're not, good enough or pretty enough or clever enough, or all those are not enoughs.
Yeah.
And that's just coming from that human part of ourselves. I always
Mm.
say that we're 99% spiritual, 1% human.
Mhm.
And that 1% human is how we show up in this world, and we've got this busy mind that's always thinking, and it's always thinking about the future and the past and comparing ourselves to others. But that's just 1% of who we are, 1%.
Mhm.
That 99% is equal to everybody else on the planet.
Mhm.
So I tend to have myself, if I'm hearing negative chatter, I know I'm in the 1%, and I know not to pay attention to that.
Mhm.
When we sort of settle back into what I usually point to my lower stomach, that's my lower dantian, that's my seat of my soul, whatever you want to call it, where my wisdom lives, my inner guidance. When I catch myself listening to the inner critic, I'm like, oh, it's just lovely. I don't get upset. It's like, oh, I'm up here. I'm up in my mind, and I drop back into my center, the truth of who I am, that beautiful spiritual being equal to everybody else. And then any insecurity, just, or any feelings of lack, none of that exists at our spiritual center.
Mhm.
We are
Yeah.
nothing but peace and love. And then I sink back into that, and the world is beautiful, and I have wonderful relationships when I come from that place.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I teach, because so many people say, how can I learn to love myself? Like we're this separate entity out here that we need to love. And I just keep pointing people back home to, you're made of love. You don't have
Mhm.
to love yourself. You just have to wake up and everybody gets caught up. I do it, I don't know how many times a day, but I wake up to it because it doesn't feel good. I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling good because I'm listening to something in my head.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's an internal alarm system that wakes me up, and I go, okay, just drop back into who you are. So we don't
Mhm.
need to meditate. It's
Yeah.
like it goes on all day long, and
Mhm.
constantly up here, back down here, up here. And I never get frustrated. We're human. We're
Mhm.
meant
Yeah.
to be on this earth. It's not about a
Mhm.
spiritual bypass. It's not about, I always say, there's plenty of time to be 100% spiritual when we're dead. But while we're on this earth, we have to embrace our humanity, and we have to
Yeah.
love ourselves and love this journey we're blessed to be on. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
so I totally embrace everything I feel. I never suppress my feelings. I just know it's energy moving through me, and I
Mhm.
just watch it, and it moves on its own accord. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's what I do to help me
And
and my clients.
what was the biggest lesson you've learned during your healing journey, like about yourself?
Like I said, the that I am so much stronger than I ever thought.
Mhm.
I am equal to everybody else on the planet. I am not illegitimate. And I deserve to take up space. I
Mhm.
deserve to take care of myself. I deserve to put my feelings not always behind somebody else's, that it's okay to speak up for myself.
Mhm.
And when we take care of ourselves and we really truly love ourselves, the universe reflects that back to us. Now,
Mhm.
when I didn't love myself and I saw myself as damaged and broken and a second class citizen,
Mhm.
I had men reflect that back to me. I had men that didn't value me because I
Mhm.
didn't value myself. They
Yeah.
didn't really love me because I didn't really love myself.
Yeah.
So now that I truly love myself, not in an egotistical way, in a really beautiful way, I
Mhm.
have incredible relationships. I mean, my partner is just the most beautiful man that has just supports me, loves me, cherishes me, adores me. And equally, we have a beautiful, loving relationship. My
Yeah.
children, our relationship is, our relationships, I have two sons, they're now in 26 and 30. And again, it's nothing but love and tenderness and kindness and no drama and no, it's just, and everywhere I look around, I mean, I have incredible friends, I have an incredible life. And that
Yeah,
all comes from that place of really loving and honoring yourself.
absolutely. That's the foundation.
Yes, 100%.
Hmm. Now, I would love to know your opinion on the Me Too movement, and if you think that was actually creating awareness around like abuse against women, or not so much.
Oh no, I definitely think I fully support it.
Hmm.
I, gosh, I mean, I've had my own many Me Too moments myself, especially as a teenager.
Hmm.
I was preyed upon by much older men and really, how should I put this delicately? Um, I was not, I was not willing for
Hmm.
what happened to me.
Hmm.
And I think there are men out there that are perpetrators and they do prey on young, vulnerable women.
Hmm.
I think it can happen in the workplace. It can happen anywhere. I mean, I admit I was desperate for male attention, but I don't think a 45-year-old man should ever take advantage of a 15-year-old girl in that
Hmm.
way.
No.
So I'm fully supported. I think
Mm.
it's still going on. I mean, you're in Europe right now, but we're it's. I live in America. I live in California, and there are
Mhm.
lawsuits and you know big big corporations that are still being held accountable for
Mhm.
their sexist culture, and women are not getting paid equally. They are there's that quid pro quo where it's like, well, I'm not saying that correctly, but you know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
you do this for me, you do me a sexual favor, and I'll see if I will promote you. And
Yeah.
if you don't, I can get you fired. I mean, there's so much that goes on where, and I'm not a diehard feminist. I mean, I believe that we're all, as I keep saying, we're all equal. I really
Mhm.
do. And that's what I think um, the movement is helping people see, that we deserve equal respect, equal rights, and it does. As I say, I mean, there's a culture where besides out in the public, as I say, where I mean, child trafficking, and there's so much absolute abuse of
Mhm.
vulnerable and young boys, and I feel very strongly that we just need to pay attention to that and speak up
Mhm.
and do what we can to prevent
Yeah.
that from.
What do you think needs to change, and how can we
Um,
provide for that?
I really, I think, I may be a little Pollyanna-ish, but I really do believe that in our schools we need to teach respect.
Mm.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
we really do, and I also, that the teaching I come from, we call it sort of the inside out understanding,
Mhm.
meaning that we are aware that we create our own experience of life via our thinking.
Mhm.
So what that does is we stop blaming other people for our experience. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, life happens and it pushes up against us and abuse happens. I'm not saying that at all. But so many of us um, take offense by something somebody said and feel entitled to attack them and hurt
Mhm.
them. Something might have been so innocent, or um, prejudiced, skin
Mhm.
color, somebody else. We see them as the other, that they're less than us, that they,
Mhm.
and it's horrific to me. I just don't understand why we aren't teaching our children at a very young age. And I mean, I'm grateful that in my family, I was taught that we were all equal,
Mhm.
um, in a to a degree, but um, and I certainly have done that with my children. I mean, I'm very proud of my children and how they are with women,
Mhm.
especially after, given the environment they grew up in. That's partly why I left, because I knew that if I didn't, my male children may take on the patterns of their father.
Mhm.
And I also I needed to demonstrate that I was a strong, independent woman and that I was not going to tolerate abuse. And I know both my children feel very strongly that I am a wonderfully strong, brave woman. And they have incredible respect for women. And as I say, I'm very happy about that. But yes, I know that there are, what blows me away is we all came through a woman. We all arrived on this planet through a woman. And I don't understand that disconnect, how misogyny can exist, or patriarchy, when I know that not all mothers are the best mothers, and some people have unfortunately not had a great upbringing, but I still feel that we need to focus on the mental health of our children in schools, starting in primary school. I mean, not primary, kindergarten even. It should be taught just as much as math and writing and everything. It's just so critical. Mental health. I live in America. I mean, you just look at these school shootings, they're horrific. It's these young boys that have felt marginalized, and then they blame those other children around them who have bullied them. And number one, bullying should be absolutely punished very early. Not punished, that's the wrong word. The bully needs to be understood and educated, and there needs to be, what's the word I'm looking for? That'll come to me in a minute. But they need to be helped. If they're bullied, they've often hurt themselves. We need to address that, not just punish them, not just being like, bullying is wrong. It's like, no, what is going on under that child?
Yeah, because hurt people hurt people.
Okay. Why they would choose to, and often become like that pack mentality and attack a one kid. It's that we've got to undo all of that, and got to take each child individually and help them understand that, aggression isn't the answer, that if they're in pain, how to articulate those feelings they're having. If they feel angry, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel anything, but it's not okay to act on those feelings if they're going to hurt another person. So it's not about shaming or blaming or punishing without consequences, was the word I was looking for. I do believe there should be consequences, but there should be so much understanding. And part of the curriculum, not just a school counselor that you go to if kids are like, oh, I don't want to see the school counselor. No, it should be a lesson.
Emotional regulation and self-love.
Absolutely.
And like you said, and respect.
And I think that comes from the understanding that we're all equal. Truly, when we look in the spiritual direction, we cannot deny that we all come from the same source. Nobody came on this planet with a little bit more, it's, they show up differently physically. Obviously, some of us are shorter, fatter, blonder, darker, blue-eyed, brown-eyed, whatever it is. We're all showing up a bit. Some people have higher IQs and some people have higher EQs. And, we just, it's lovely. It's like I call it our human suit. We all come into this world looking a little different and acting a little different, but it's just a suit.
Embrace your authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the whole of us. It's just a little outer layer.
Yeah, it's just the package, the wrapping.
Just the wrapping. I love that. Exactly. It's just the wrapping.
Yeah. Well, my last question is also always the same one, and that is, when are you at your happiest?
When I'm with my children, I have to say. I absolutely adore my children. And we have, as I said earlier, we have an amazing relationship. So it's always so much fun to be with them. And we see each other, one of my boys and his girlfriend lives about 2.5 hours away. And we see each other every few weeks because it's just yummy and lovely. And I'm also, obviously, when I'm with my partner, he's just the most, as I say, most beautiful man. So we don't fight. We don't, we just love each other. And when I'm working probably with my clients, when I see the breakthroughs and I see somebody that has just transformed, and it's the most satisfying thing on earth. It really is. And not just because I'll have my nephews and I have family members that will reach out to me and we talk and they're like, oh my God, it helps me so much. And I do. I love helping people, and not in a codependent way, but in a modeling way. By being the healthiest version of myself, I know that I can inspire others, and that makes me really happy that I'm helping people heal and show up in the world with more love for themselves, and in turn, as I say, the universe reflecting that back to them, and them, not suffering from abuse anymore and getting on with their life. I always say that, I had somebody just ask me the other day, how are you so happy after everything you've been through? And I'm like, things happened to me when I had no way of defending myself. Or maybe I felt robbed of something at some point in my life. But I'm not going to let them rob me of my future. I'm not going to focus on what happened. I'm going to focus on right now, the present moment, which is all we ever have anyway. So I am just, and my son once said to me, he said, "Why are you so loving?" And I said, "I can't help it, because it just sort of pours out of me. It's just,
I am made of love."
I think I'm made of love, and it just is this sort of, thing that just keeps generating more love. And, I'm not, as I say, I'm not Pollyanna. I'm very aware of things in the world, but I'm proactive when I can be proactive, and I'm in the state of the present moment, and in that loving as much as I can be as well.
Thank you so much, Del. It was truly a joy to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful. Thank you.